Hey everyone, it's Derek from Knights of Last Call. So a few minutes ago, we received notification that Critical Role Season 4, Campaign 4, will be played using Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. So I don't actually care about this because I don't really watch Critical Role. However, I think that this is a massive blow to the Daggerheart community. I think it shows that, well, number one, we've sort of been stuck in our own Kool-Aid. We've sort of been caught in an echo chamber. The fact of the matter is, Professor Dungeon Master's video the other day highlighted this point. Dungeons & Dragons is still by far and away the single largest entity, bigger than the number 2, number 3, number 4, all that stuff combined. So a brand new game like Daggerheart just does not have the sort of market penetration that the folks at Critical Role probably felt that they needed for financial viability for their campaign. But that being said, I think that this is an extremely disappointing and strange move to release a new game under the auspice of a system that is designed for the kind of play style that Critical Role is famous for. To bring on 2 ex-D&D leads in Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford, to hype up your game to this level, and then not to switch away from Dungeons & Dragons to do your main campaign seems baffling to me. And I think it's going to hurt the game's long-term viability. If for no other reason, then I think some people will view it as a lack of faith or a lack of confidence or a lack of ability in the game system of Daggerheart itself. Now, I don't get paid by Darrington Press. I don't get paid by any of these game companies. I like the games I like. This isn't going to stop me from enjoying Daggerheart. It's not going to stop me from creating content for Daggerheart, including an actual play. Hey, maybe it'll do well now. But what it does do is confuse me. And I just don't understand their motivation, other than the fact that they felt like perhaps Dungeons & Dragons was a bigger draw to their show than the Critical Role cast and crew themselves. Additionally, we don't know the timing of these decisions. Maybe Critical Role, Campaign 4 was set in stone as D&D a long time ago before they saw how successful Daggerheart has been, selling out now their third printing in a row. Or perhaps there's some sort of secret deal and Wizards of the Coast pays Critical Role some sort of money to keep the game system in D&D. I doubt that, but you never know what's going on behind the scenes. Lastly, maybe the Critical Role folks felt like there was still such a learning curve after their Age of Umbra campaign that maybe they decided they didn't want to switch. And of course, perhaps the most big change up is that with Brennan Lee Mulligan stepping into Dungeon Master, they didn't feel like it would be fair to him or a requirement for him to have to learn a new system while being thrust into this kind of big spotlight. Not that he's not used to major spotlight changes or big spotlights. However, Brennan Lee Mulligan is also known for basically saying, I don't really use the rules anyways except for combat. So I don't know how much of a big switch that would have been for him regardless. So maybe they felt like switching to a new GM and switching to a new system was too much change all at once. In which case I would say maybe you should have made the switch to Daggerheart first. Again, I know a lot of people, myself included, said this game would be kind of DOA if Critical Role didn't make it their main campaign. And while they are doing a second Age of Umbra micro campaign or mini campaign or whatever you want to call it, the fact is this is going to hurt the game. From a playability standpoint, it's fine, right? The game is still incredibly solid, well-designed, and a lot of fun. But one of the ways that a game survives is by having that sort of market penetration, the ability to find players online, people who want to play your game. And as someone who's played many games that aren't exactly at the top of the popularity list, I could tell you that it could be difficult to find players. And when it's difficult to find players, you lose motivation to want to run games. Then the whole ecosystem and community starts to fall apart. And before you know it, the game is sort of dead. So I don't think Daggerheart is dead, but this is a massive blow, I think, to the game's long-term prospects. And I never thought for a moment that it was going to replace Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know that anything will ever in our lifetime. However, I did seriously think that this game could have been a top 3 or top 4 contender. I could have seen Daggerheart battling with Pathfinder 2 for popularity at tables, say at Gen Con or Origins or at your local gaming store in the next year or two. And the game has only been out for, 3 months? But this is going to show a lot of people that the game is still niche. It's going to show them that Critical Role themselves don't have, I'll call it confidence or faith in the ability of their new system to carry their major flagship product. And that is really, really, really unfortunate. Now, of course, this is Critical Role making a decision for Critical Role. This has nothing to do with Darrington Press. I'm sure the folks at Darrington Press, which, are owned by many of the folks at Critical Role, they're going to keep making the games and they're going to keep doing what they're doing. This was a Critical Role decision. And I don't pretend to know Critical Role decisions. However, I can say, for me personally, that if I started my own game company and I created a high epic cinematic fantasy game focused on narrative storytelling, then when I started my next actual play, one of the largest sources of TTRPG entertainment, arguably one of the things that has brought the most people into the hobby, which is a high fantasy, epic, cinematic, narrative fantasy game, I would probably choose to use my game. Not a game that, number one, I think is personally a dungeon crawler combat system. I love D&D, but that's what it is. It doesn't have any sort of components or elements for narrative beats or cinematic moments. 2, has been sort of mired in what I'll call community vitriol. Now, I understand that we are a narrow group here on YouTube and Reddit and the convention scene, and that doesn't represent everybody. But the fact of the matter is people have been fairly soured on Wizards of the Coast. And I can't help but wonder if this was a bad business decision from the folks at Critical Role. Regardless, it sucks. And I do think this is going to take some wind out of the sails of Daggerheart. But the game is great. The folks at Darrington Press are amazing. I'm going to keep hyping this game up. You're going to keep hyping this game up, or at least you should if you like it. So Daggerheart may be dead. Long live Daggerheart. So let's keep our chins up. Let's keep looking towards the future. There's a lot of great games out there. I hope this one isn't dead before it had its chance to shine. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Bye, everybody.